Hi, I'm Brenda Reese, freedom and forgiveness coach, and a person just like you that is learning to navigate life and all of its challenges. I teach a forgiveness process like no other. It's a blend of practical and spiritual forgiveness. This process guides you into knowing how unforgiveness can be keeping you stuck in your relationships, both personally and professionally, and how it prevents you from releasing resentment and finding joy. Each week, I share practical and some not so practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and other people that are on this journey just like us. This is for you if you are ready to turn your pain into peace. Welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. Welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Reese, and today I have a lovely guest that I would like to introduce you to. Rachel Vasquez is a public transformational speaker dedicated to inspiring change, hope, resilience, and empowerment for individuals creating a new life after loss. Specializing in guiding women through grief, Rachel supports them and their children in coping with loss, finding strength, and embracing healing by awakening joy. You don't usually hear grief and joy in the same sentence. Her mission is to help clients overcome pain, rediscover inner peace, and transform difficult life transitions into opportunities filled with hope, dreams, and endless possibilities. Now, I love Rachel's mission that I want to share with you. Rachel's mission is to open up and normalize the conversation surrounding grief, extending from everyday household to corporate offices globally. She aims to implement support programs and educational initiatives that foster understanding, compassion, and effective care for people dealing with grief in all aspects of their lives. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi. I feel so honored to be here. I'm really excited to talk about this conversation, talk about forgiveness, talk about just everywhere. We'll see where it goes.
I know, exactly. So yeah, just having the conversation and talking about grief. I love your mission. I really do, because helping bring out, it's like forgiveness is hard for people. And the more we can talk about it and redefine it and help people understand it for themselves, the easier it can be. And the same is for grief. And I would like, if you wouldn't mind, just to share a little bit of your story of what kind of got you into this grief work, because you had a big loss that really catapulted you into so many things.
Yes, I did. And it's really throughout my life, I have experienced a lot of loss in some very unconventional ways. And they were very close people to me, very close friends and family that died in traumatic ways.
Ugh.
And it was always something that I went through, I feel, with dignity and supporting of those who were most impacted by the losses that I was experiencing.
Mm.
In 2018, December, my husband was killed in a motorcycle accident. He was hit, it was Thanksgiving Day weekend, and we had just finished having lunch, doing like some Christmas stuff, and he was hit by a 17-year-old who was under the influence of alcohol and some other things. So it took him a week before we had to pull him off of his life support systems. And really that with me and my 4 children that we had. And at the time, my oldest had just graduated college through ASU. And then my other 3 were still in school, elementary, junior high, and high school.
Wow.
And it was a shock, to say the least, to all of us. And through the things that I experienced and handled in very poor ways, and struggles that I had trying to maneuver all of the chaos that comes with that magnitude of a loss, really, it catapulted me into a position of, I have a new mission in my life, and this is what it is. And it is working with people who are going through grief, whatever that is, and helping them maneuver those losses, maneuver that pain, so that they can experience and begin to grow their their life after.
Oh my God, that's that beautiful example of finding your purpose through your pain. And I'm sure it took you a little while to get there because you had your own grief to process along with the kids. Oh my gosh, what? That must have felt overwhelming at the time.
It was very difficult. I lost myself and I was hyper focused on my pain of my best friend, my ride or die, my spouse, the father to my children for over 23 years. And my children were over here suffering the loss of their father. And they were grieving and mourning in ways that I couldn't understand, nor did I see through my own pain. And
Yeah.
they were also trying to hide things and take care of me. Like,
Oh,
don't let mom see us be sad. Don't let mom see us cry because she's, sad enough. Or, there were all these things that were actually causing a larger divide between our children and me.
yeah.
And when I realized that that's what was going on, I kind of like woke up and
Mm.
thought, I've got to do something different now because we have to come together and support one another and find what it is that they need as my children and how I can help them. And together we were able to begin healing process together.
Oh. That is so good. And I can see your passion and feel your passion because I mean you experienced it. And no wonder you want to help women and children with that. And it is, I mean, I just am so grateful for the work that you're bringing because how we connected, was through my going through my grief process, not a death of someone, but the loss of my husband through dementia.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was so synchronistic how we met and having the conversation with you just touched my heart deeply and helping me to understand my own grief and how this kind of leads into how grief affects us in every aspect of our lives. And something I know that you touch on is the mental and spiritual and physical, emotional aspects of grief and how they affect us and our overall well being. And we were talking before, and I love this. So it's not just the bad grief, bad, quote unquote, but there's good grief. And so it affects us in all these areas. Can you elaborate a little bit on the effects of grief on our overall well-being?
Overall well-being, grief can come in and it can present as we all know, like the depression, bringing up anxiety, bringing up insecurities and questioning of our self worth. It brings up shame. It brings up guilt. It is so painful in so many ways. And these take a toll on our body and in our physical health. They can manifest in ways of not being able to sleep, in grinding our teeth, in not breathing well, in not eating well, in going down unhealthy habits, leading into addictions, whether it's food addictions, alcohol, drugs, gambling, anything that can distract from what it is that we're actually experiencing. And then there's like the good grief that people don't really think that there is that grief that can come in, which is like things like getting married. But there's the transitions that are happening there because now you're commingling and things have to be different. There might be socks on the floor where there hadn't been socks on the floor. And so things start to be disruptive to what your normalcy is. Having a child, everything is so wonderful when you want to have children together, and yet there's a loss of freedom. So there's this other part of grief that may not be realized as that's what it is. That loss of your freedom, the loss of being able to go out on a girls' night whenever you want to, being able to escape for the weekend with your husband without arranging childcare or, toting along a toddler.
Yeah.
Those are all wonderful things to have in your life, but there is that flip side of adjustment and making sure that those are dealt with in healthy ways so that they don't manifest in like resentment and picking fights and arguments and things like that, so that the communication lines are able to stay open so that you can work through those those transformations that are happening in your life and embrace that. And
Yeah.
same thing with hard grief. It's applying the same principles there.
Oh my gosh, thank you for touching all that. Because, as you were talking, I was thinking about all the different, I love how you said transitions. So if people can think about a transition is always going to bring some sort of grief. It is. And that if we can just not connect it just to like major losses, but the minor losses too, or the minor things that we call minor, go through, if we don't address them, they do build up and affect our overall well-being. And I was thinking of even like a lot of combining families now, right? Bringing in people getting remarried and even combining kids, not even young kids, but adult kids. And because there was quite an adjustment for my husband and I, who got married later in life with our own families, and kind of combining those kids too. Also, when you were talking about the shoes, leaving the shoes there, it was like funny because when we moved in together, he had to have everything in its place. And I was more like, let's have it a little bit more relaxed. That was quite an adjustment. And we needed to get support with that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually healthy to ask for support. And I know you touched on that. It's so healthy to ask for help.
Right. And I think one of the things, part of my mission, is really about bringing the education to people in normal everyday life before they are going through a larger transition, find themselves in a position of where they're supporting someone else who is going through an
Mm.
amount of grief, so that we can come together and have this normalcy of, hey, you know what? This is what we do. When you're in grief, I'm going to reach out. You accept the help.
Yeah.
It's okay to accept help and not to feel weird about it and not to make it weird. Like we always make it weird. And
Yeah.
that's just because nobody deals with it or talks about it or creates a plan. Like you have a fire escape plan when you work in a big building, but hey, if you're in pain, what's the plan? How can you be best supported? And when we don't talk about it until we're in the thick of stuff, that's when people say, I don't know. I don't know what I need. I need to be left alone.
Yes. And we isolate, like we were talking earlier. We isolate. I know I did. And we think we need to handle it on our own. Like you were sharing about your story. It's like, I need to do that. But then, we're eating chocolate or food or we're drinking to try to help us with that. And then I loved how you shared a little bit ago. It's like, okay, then I get resentful because I'm isolating, I'm shoving everybody away, but then nobody's contacting me and I'm mad about that.
Yep. Yeah.
Because we're not, it's like having that pre-plan, like you were talking about, is really helpful, and understanding for me that grief is its own animal. I mean, it's its own consciousness, and we can prepare for it as best. In fact, if we do prepare for it, it's better, because then we know that, okay, I may feel a certain way. I may feel like isolating, yet I know that getting help is important, right? Because we've had that kind of thought process. Does that make sense? Like you were talking about kind of education, like having a plan. If something happens, right, to me or to anybody, it's like, okay, let's have a plan. I want to have support. And for those of us that want to support someone else, it's okay to not know what to say.
Yes.
It's okay to not know what to do. And we can say that, right? We can tell people, I don't know what to say, but I want to support you. Can I bring you food? Can I sit with you?
Absolutely. And I think what that made me think of is, for a lot of us, we have a will in place. We have our end of life directives. So, if I am in this, my quality of life shall be something like this. I prefer to not be resuscitated, or so there's all
Yeah.
these directives and things that we do for the logistic parts of our lives. But what we don't think about is, how am I going to be when I need support? Am I going to feel comfortable? Who do I want to reach out to? What is that? Yes, I would love someone to bring me food because I
Yes.
hate to cook, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and to at least have those conversations or those thoughts entertained a little bit in your mind, so that when they do come up when you are grieving and you're feeling alone and feeling isolated, that you think, okay, I can reach out and I can call Brenda and I can say, hey, I'm having a hard time right now and I just want to talk. Can you just listen? I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. So that we're not isolating and we're not feeling like we're a burden, like our pain is a burden, because that's something else that comes in when you're going through this loss. Not only are the people who have been in your life feeling a little like they don't know how to show up for you. So they create like
Right.
this awkwardness, and then they wait too long because they don't want to come and be right on top of you. So they give you some space, but maybe it's been too long. So now they feel weird about coming back in. And so
Yeah.
it's this weird dance. But in addition to that, as we go through loss or grief of any kind, we change.
Yes.
And people think, oh, she's just lost her mind. She's a loon. She no longer likes to go to the bars, or she doesn't like to watch football on Sunday, or she's not even the same person. So
Mhm.
your orbit of friends are going to change.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You don't have to hold resentment that
Yeah.
they don't come around anymore, because you're changing and different priorities are coming into your vision.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Thank you for touching on that because it does change you. It changes us. It has us look at life differently. It has us look at ourselves differently. Our priorities change. And another thing is it's okay that it's like for me, it felt all consuming. It was all consuming. I didn't have the energy for other people or things. All I could do was get up and get dressed. Even that was hard, right? And just having a couple people, because I want to talk about support for a second, because you really are encouraging of that, of the support groups or support in itself, individuals. When you were going through your grief, did you think of even a support group, or did you have certain individuals that you could count on that you felt like you could trust?
I felt there were a couple of close people that I could reach out to. But again, for me, my story is I did start to feel like I was a burden, or the things that people were trying to press on me. Get back to work, get back to normal, get your kids back to school, get them back to this, get them, the more that you go back to the way it was, the better. And the fact is that you just opened up you just opened a mattress out of a box that you ordered online, and then you got to return it because it's like, oh, this is way too hard or way too soft or way too like small or whatever.
Right.
Oh, just send it back to us. And you're sitting there looking at this huge mattress, like, how am I going to get that back in that little square box? Like, what?
Right.
Huh? Doesn't make sense. And you just had your whole entire life ripped apart,
Yeah.
thrown about, and people are telling you just go back to the way it was. And that's what keeps people stuck. And
Mhm.
so having support, and even if you have to go out and look for support,
Yeah.
which I was so blessed, I found in now I'm her co-lead, is the Modern Widows Club.
Yes.
And that is just, even within this support group, we have kind of like adjacent support groups for specialty. We have,
Mm.
like a Black Widows group because maybe their needs are more unique. Or we have one for people who have taken their own lives. So their spouses have
Good.
died that way. So it's all about honoring these different unique support. So there's overall grief. And then we can go down to, is it an illness diagnosis?
Oof.
Then you need that special cancer support. And then within that, there's breast cancer support. And within that, there's breast cancer support of people who have had chemotherapy. And so
Oh my
it can
gosh.
really go down to where you are talking to people who get it. And when you are being supported by people who have walked that path before you, you're able to embrace the people who have not and allow them to come in and help in their own capacity, because they can't get it. So your cup is really empty. So when you get that support from people who get it,
Yeah.
then you can open up and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can go out to lunch with you. You're going to have to drag me out, but I'll do that. And it doesn't make you feel like quit telling me what to do. You just don't understand, because you already have that need being fulfilled.
Oh my gosh, that's powerful. And thank you for sharing that about the Modern Widows Club, because I think some women would think, oh, I can't go there because I'm dealing with a cancer diagnosis, or like in my case, dementia. But what you're saying is, no, there's these subsets, right? We've got the overall umbrella, but then we've got these specialty places, and that's what we need. And that's the kind of resources that I'm sure, it's like to share with people is so important, because you do feel alone. You feel like nobody understands. And, you do feel it's almost like there's a shame that comes over us. Like we should be able to handle this.
Hmm.
And, but there's no flippin' way we can handle it. We're not supposed to. Our grief
Right.
needs a witness. Our grief needs a witness. And when we can understand or be in connection with someone who's gone through it, it's like this overall relief. And that's what you provide. That's what you helped me with, was going, you're going to be okay, Brenda. You're going to be okay. And I'm here, whatever you need, just to listen, to talk. And that's what we need, is like, okay, how'd you get through this? How'd you get
Hmm.
through that? Now, how did you, now I'm feeling better. I don't know am I supposed to feel better? All of those things along with the kids. And so thank you so much for sharing about that, because I think that's important for people to understand too about the grief support groups or grief support itself, whether it's a grief support coach, and then programs, because that right there, when you're not alone, powerful, powerful. Now you shared that you started working with women and children. Um, and I loved how you touched on earlier about like you didn't even realize about the kids, what they were going through. I'd like us to touch on, is there unique challenges for widows and children and through the grieving process?
Absolutely. Because now, when it comes to, and I'm just speaking strictly of widowhood here, losing the spouse or a partner is the single most stressful event that an adult can have. There is a study, it's by Holmes and Reyes Studies.
Okay.
And it was a survey taken. So, and we're talking about, they took the most common things that would happen in someone's life: bankruptcy, divorce, that type of thing. They don't, I just want to start, side note, they don't talk about what it would be. They don't mention the loss of a child
Okay.
in this study, because I get that question a lot, and that was not included because fortunately that is not a common event. But
Thank
like with widowhood for
you.
women, 70% of married women will become widowed in their lifetime. And
Wow.
70% of those women will be under the age of 59 years old.
Jeez.
So we're not these like 80-year-old, 90-year-old women wearing black from head to toe that are just shuffling around. I mean, we are in the middle of our careers and getting our kids to college. Um, I have a woman who she runs a nonprofit in Tennessee, and she was literally pregnant with one child and had a 10-month-old when her husband died.
Oh,
So I mean, there's a lot going on in the world of widowhood. So it is the single most stressful event that happens because of what's called secondary losses. And
yes.
that is your loss of identity of being a spouse, the income changes, the insurance, your home situation. Can you afford to pay for your home? Are you going to have to rent? Or, all the gamut that comes with these decisions that need to be made at a time that you are swimming in grief. Now, with children, the single most stressful event that can happen in their life is the death of a parent.
Yes.
So, yes, they go through it like through divorce or bullying in school or changing schools and moving and things like that impact children, but not more than the death of a parent. So you have these two huge life altering, most stressful events that people are going to encounter in their lifetime, living under one roof, grieving in different ways. And it starts to become like, I lost my partner, I lost your parent, I lost my best friend. And they're like, I lost my mom. I lost my dad. And I don't have somebody to walk me down the aisle. I don't have somebody to show me how to work on a car. My poor son is swimming with, me and his two sisters that live at home. And he really craves like that male role model.
Right.
And we're just like, sorry, can you hand me that brush? So he's just like, and then as other things start to evolve, and as I mentioned, it was December of 2018 when my husband finally passed.
Yeah.
So we had a few months, and then we moved up here to the Pacific Northwest. And right after that, I got my kids into school, and then COVID came in to the picture.
That's
So then we shut
right.
down. So when we're trying to create
Ugh.
a new life of normalcy, then we became isolated again.
Yeah.
So that kind of delayed a lot of the treatment that they should have received. And then it actually came to light that my son, who was 10 and a half at the time, 11, he had been misdiagnosed and not diagnosed with autism. So he had a bulk of elementary and all of his junior high without having supportive services.
Oh,
So
wow.
now as he's in high school, he's really behind, and there aren't those services available for high school kids. So it really kind of distracts you from, as a parent, from getting in and trying to manage everything. And when you're doing it, as I thought, completely alone,
Yeah.
because sometimes I can micromanage and say, no, you're not doing it right. I don't need your help because you're going to come in and do it wrong.
Of course.
But what actually really happened is I dropped the ball in so many ways, and then I'm mad at myself, and
Right.
I'm angry, and I feel guilt and shame, and I blame myself in so many ways. And if they're having a bad day, I'm like, I'm a failure, and they're just living life. But we internalize it weird, and we make ourselves the villain in this story where there is none.
Right.
So,
Thank you for sharing all of that. Because oh my God, to go through all of that and COVID and, with the young kids, because I've heard, when a child loses their parent or parents, they grieve for the rest of their life
mhm,
because there's all the firsts, there's all the stuff that parent isn't there for. And, and then having that feeling, no wonder you felt that way because you're trying to be both parents, right? You're trying to let me, you're not knowing that you can't. It's like, let me try to be both. Let me try to be everything to these kids. And we can't because we can't even be it to ourselves.
right,
Oh,
right.
oh, my friend.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of like when you think about friends or people that that were in your life before you experienced the loss, whatever the loss
Oh, yes.
is kind of like the same thing because they don't want to bring it up because and
Yes.
like you forgot. Oh, I went through a horrible divorce that left me devastated. I forgot all about it. Oh, my husband died. You're kidding. Thanks for reminding me. So they have this weird thing like I don't want to talk about it. But same thing with my kids because then I've caught myself when they're like I really miss my dad and I think, "Oh crap, how am I going to get in here and fix this?" And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no, I don't. I just sit with them and say, yeah, me too. I
Oh,
know."
that is powerful. Just being able to witness it, that's what I found just in my own grief, let alone yours. And I bet you feel better when you can speak your husband's name, when you can talk about the experiences, because so many people they don't know what to do and say, like you just said, so they don't bring it up. It's so funny how we try to make it better for someone else because we are uncomfortable ourselves. And I think if people can just realize that I'm uncomfortable, I don't know what to do. I'm uncomfortable, especially if they haven't gone through it. If someone has gone through a big grief, then they're more apt to go, "Oh crap, honey, I know. I'm here for you if you want to
Mhm.
chat or talk or and being able to just share is so good for the soul." So good for the soul. So thank you for sharing all of that because it's a wild ride. It's it's
It
a
is.
wild ride. Now, did you learn, I want to kind of get to your corporate thing too, but before we go there, do you have tips or something you can share about how the parent, that's alive can communicate more effectively with the kids? Because I think that you've shared some things like just listening. Is there anything else that you would add to somebody who's going through that same situation, to bring them closer together?
Yeah, and some people might not like it, because I didn't like it. I still don't like it, but I really worked very hard creating this space of openness and honesty and keeping my mouth shut.
Mm.
So when they are saying, mom, I really didn't like it when you did this, and you were behaving like this, and it hurt my feelings, and it was blah blah blah, and they start this like regurgitation, and our instinct is either I'm your mother, young lady. How dare you? Or to be like, nah, how, what, that, what? No, it was because you had attitude and you slammed the door, like you want to get in there and fight for yourself,
Yes.
or put into a place. And it was really trying to keep them on an even ground, even though I'm the mother and they're the children, treating them as the human beings that they are, with their own, allowing them to speak their truth, their perspective, because that's the only way that they see their life. And I may know other things like, well, it was because Santa, we were trying to create this situation of wonderment, and that's why we overslept Christmas morning, but from their
Yeah.
perspective, wouldn't even wake up on Christmas morning, we had to wait, you know what I mean? So
Right.
that it's like the whole picture. But if we want them to feel honored and heard
Yeah.
and show up authentically, because that's where the healing for them is, we have to take our lumps. I mean, we're the parents. We need to put on our big girl panties or our big boy shorts, and let them talk about it. And sometimes you may disagree. You may think that they're being ridiculous or dramatic or all the things that have gone in my head. And you just kind of have to eat it for a little bit until you can come to a place where you can say, wow, I really thank you for sharing that with me. I had no idea that that's how you thought. And
Mm,
I had no idea that that's how you felt. And I had no idea that that's what your experience was.
yeah.
And then eventually I was able to share, because when we were in that same situation, I was thinking I was protecting you by this or that. And then suddenly that dialogue starts to, oh, well, I can see how you thought that, but I thought you were just lying and being secretive, or, and so it
Right.
kind of like it opens up this
Yeah.
communication, but it has to start with the parent of maybe hearing things that they don't like, because it's that mirror, and
Oh,
and
yes.
this is their truth. So, whether it's right, wrong in your mind, it's theirs. And having to really hold that in the highest regard and respect for the love of your kids. And that has been that sometimes really sucks.
Oh, yeah. That mirror. That is that saying says, out of the mouth of babes, right? And I like what you shared too, because what I'm hearing and what I know about grief, about kids grieve differently than adults do. And I heard it saying when I was doing this grief certification course to try to understand my own grief, the person called it, they're puddle jumpers. So kids can, they don't just stay in grief like we have a tendency to kind of stay in grief. We come up a little bit, but we're in grief. Where they can kind of jump, they can be in grief and be angry and sad, and then boom, they're at a birthday party. And they can do that. And I think that that's really honoring, is understanding what you shared about we grieve differently. And if we can open ourselves up to that, to compassion, because that's something I had to learn. Because, we have a tendency to judge. It's like, why isn't that person more upset? Why are they not crying? Why are they going out doing that? Why aren't they dressed in black? Right. No, we have a tendency to judge, and it's like, I have no place to judge anyone because, I mean, now I know because I grieved differently than I thought I would,
Mhm.
and I still do. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you do, right? We have the different ways that we grieve different things.
Yeah. And, for me, people always interject like, wow, you're going on 6 years. Have you thought about dating again? And have you thought about this or that? And I'm like, for me, that's not where I am. I am in love with learning more about myself and supporting and being there with my children and also building this dream business and experiencing dreams being realized that I never even knew that I had. So it's like I am
Mm.
good right now. I am 100% fulfilled in that aspect. And for other people, they may find love in everything that they were wanting relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And that, that whispering and the gossip in the corner is
Yes.
not, it's not serving them because it's not their job to make those types of implications. And
Right.
sometimes people can't help themselves about that. And even for my children, so my husband's birthday was Halloween. And
Okay.
so every year we would always have birthday cake before we'd go trick or treating.
Yeah.
And as my 20-year-old has gotten older, she no longer like cares really about us still honoring by doing the birthday cake for my husband, but it's important to my other two that they do
Yes.
it. And they get mad that my other one goes off and like, no, I'll catch you later, save me some cake. And it's deeply offensive to them. And
Yeah.
so we always have to, every year we have that conversation. It's okay. This is how you're honoring your dad, and this is what feels good for you.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that she has to feel that same way. So,
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was impactful. And I love that example. So thank you for sharing these beautiful, thank you for just your transparency and your vulnerability. That's what makes a really good coach and a really good teacher is, you're walking your talk. And I value that about you so much. And you know what you were sharing, you're taking this into corporate, into corporations. And could you just touch on that for people who might be interested in knowing about that, about what you feel can be gained by taking this information into a corporate setting?
yes. Well, so where I feel that there's like the duality of the benefit here. Corporations spend a lot of money hiring, doing background checks, drug testing, doing all of these things, training, development, the continuation of training and developing, promoting the training and developing that comes with this. So it's a large investment when they have these people that they rely on to keep their corporations up and running.
Mhm.
Any business, for that matter, it doesn't have to be a large corporation.
Yeah.
So it is to their benefit to learn these tips and tools of what grief is, how it affects the person, their mind, their body, thought process, their emotional state, their physical state, and their spiritual state. And what does that mean when they show up to work to support your organization that you created to make money, to make a living, to open up nonprofits, to donate to, your political campaign, to your, puppies
Yeah.
in humane societies, like whatever your cause is. So it comes to this organizational level of we need to educate the HR departments, the manager staff, the supervisory staff, the corporate boards.
Yes.
Okay, so I sit on a board and I always at every meeting come in and talk about at the Wellness Universe how grief is mandatory, not mandatory, but like it's very important
Yes.
that we have something to do with grief in this capacity, in this capacity. So it's always about having that conversation because how is that going to affect your bottom line, your dollars? Creating your overall healthy workspace environment and how to support the employees in the things that they go through because they're always talking about having diversity and having mental wellness and
Yes.
physical wellness in the workplace? Well, people, depending on their demographic, so whether they are of like Black, Indigenous, people of color, or if they're LGBTQA plus, if they are, whatever age, whatever religious background, they all carry unique cultural dynamics into the way that they grieve. And
Yeah.
so those are all things that need to be addressed in order to support and create this living organism that is their business, their corporation, their organization. And it has to be healthy in order to thrive. And that starts with supporting their employees through their grief.
Oh, hallelujah. I just woohoo! Drop the mic, girlfriend. That's awesome. I'm so happy that you're taking that in there. Oh my gosh, so needed. So needed because it's there's so much transition happening all the time and that it does affect the bottom line. It affects each person. And so thank you for sharing that. One of the things that you do is talk about joy. You talk about embracing joy, and I got to see that on your face as you were talking about just kind of your passion and what you're doing. And so, how did you, or how can you encourage people to embrace joy to help them through the grief and their new beginnings? Because there is a new beginning after we get through certain stages.
Yes, it's like the states of being, love
Mm.
and joy. It's our most natural state. We are love. We are joy. We have this as part of our core essence, and it's about learning how to tap into that whenever, for whatever circumstance. So making hard decisions and being sad and very blue, but being able to tap into joy for those moments, to gain clarity, to reground yourself, and able to shift the idea or the perspective of whatever the situation is that you're in that
Yeah.
moment long enough to breathe a little bit deeper and to be able to express and create whatever that oversight, that overall picture that it is that whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you're
Yeah.
trying to figure out, how am I going to put this house for sale, and it's coming along with going through the stuff and getting rid of stuff and these memories, and to take a moment to anchor in. I actually am a certified ambassador for an organization called Joyly, because I mean, their mission is just exactly what I teach to people, and what I help people embrace is really just, it's like a 4-step. It's sit, breathe, think, and feel.
Oh,
And the neuroscience that goes along with it, it just really shows you how you can bring yourself to a point of joy, even under any circumstance, and be able to get through to that next moment.
oh,
And the more that you practice that, and you stay in practice of trying to make your decisions and anchored in that joy, things have a more optimistic outlook, and you're able to um, do things that you thought you would never accomplish before, or that would be too difficult. It takes some of the ease into it, and allows you to tackle these things that you thought, there's no way I could do that, and you
ah,
can do it. So
thank you. And they could do that with your help.
mhm.
So, which leads me to I'm just so grateful for our conversation today. And I'd like you to share with our listeners and viewers. You've got a podcast they can get more information from, and you also have some spots left in an 8-week course. Would you share those with the audience?
Yeah. So I have a podcast. It's called Soul Spark. And what I really try to do there is introduce and bring in, have widows or people who have um, gone through or are going through grief tell their story, because, oh, wow, can you learn so much and relate on so many levels to every story that you hear? And every story carries that amazing depth and wisdom and inspiration, because you hear like this rags to riches story, this like triumphing over pain. and learning that, yes, that grief and these challenges are always there, they're a part, but the way that we can have them unfold and shine the light in the ways that they can transform our lives in positive ways and
Yeah.
be that catalyst for these beautiful things.
Yeah.
And then I also bring in people of practical things that we need to know as widows, like maybe, having a will, how to sell your house, how things we need to know if we're planning on buying property, investment purposes. So like, bringing in a certified financial planners to talk about,
Nice.
hey, I have $0 in my bank account. How is it too late for me to start growing? Or I have a windfall of money and what should I do with it? So all of these different things, I like to bring in people that I personally believe in their mission and vet them, and that have the interest of a demographic of people who are finding themselves in a moment of complete transformation and transition in their life.
Mm.
So things have to change and things have to get mixed up in order to create that new growth.
Yes. Woohoo. All right. Now you've got an 8-week program that you're going to be teaching, and you only have a few spots left, and you're probably not going to teach it this way again, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have four. So first of all, on my website, I'm changing, mixing things up a little bit differently. And so I have 4 spots left for the 8-week program. And that's just really about anchoring yourself in joy, creating your new life and what's next through grief and transitions. So we do a lot of different things. I have a lot of different modalities in my tool belt. So it's always custom and unique to the person and what it is that they're going through.
Okay.
So with that being said, I only have 4 left through the end of the year. And then I'm going to be changing things around because I have built out a little bit more of the corporate packages and working in a little bit more of public speaking on stages. So my time is changing a little bit. So
Yeah.
but
No.
yeah, so I have that, and I'm always open for resources. I have a lot of resources. So even if it's any type of grief, I've been working with a family that was in the postpartum, dealing with a lot of postpartum depression and
Yeah.
had a major setback in that dynamic. And so I've been helping them through some of those things with some incredible resources as well. So I'm pretty dialed in. And also I have a huge network of friends and colleagues that reach globally. So it just kind of depends if you need a name to say, hey, who helps out with this? I can
Yes.
probably pass that on as well.
No, what is your website and social media if people want more information from you?
So my website is Living Beyond Grief Now, and my business is Living Beyond Grief, and I'm Rachel Vasquez, a grief warrior. So Rachel Vasquez, a grief warrior, is where you'll find me. I'm all over the place. I'm at the Wellness Universe. I'm in Joyly, and I just really love to show up in the Pacific Northwest. I'm involved with fantastic ladies in the Fave group, but I really try to surround myself with people and organizations. Of course, as I mentioned, I'm an advocate for the Modern Widows Club
Yes.
in things that I believe in and that are out there helping and creating change and opening conversations.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. And we'll have all that in the show notes so people can click and go right to these places. And I want to thank you again so much for sharing your story and sharing your wisdom and experience because, you touched my heart from the moment that we met. And I know that you are just touching the lives of so many people and bringing joy through the pain. So thank you for today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Forgive Yourself podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit our website at Brenda Reis, REISS coaching.com for more show notes and additional episodes. And would you do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast? And please consider rating and reviewing the show. That will help other people find us. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Forgive Yourself podcast. Take care.